Hello everyone, welcome to tonight's episode. The title is Commands of New Skill from a Universal Future. And uniquely for this episode, I want to start off by reading a poem I wrote in 2016. The title of this poem is The Commander Within, and it's from this poetry collection I wrote, Eternity's Flame. It can be found online. Anyways, The Commander Within, poem 33 of Eternity's Flame. I'm just saying that for archival reasons. Alright. The Commander Within. Did you know I have a desk made of stardust and an office made of starlight? Some moments give us hope beyond definition. It is in those moments where we must listen to the divine commander within, from within. When the only war is between language and the empty page. As jovial as it may seem, there is no need for deceptive treachery. How can burning candles compete for the light in the room? Before you are dead, realize eternally how light blooms. And so the reason I wanted to share this is because it says it is in those moments where we must listen to the divine commander from within. And I'm going to speak about that idea. The title Commands of New Skill from a Universal Future. I can tell you that sometimes these titles are not words, they're images for me. They're emotions and images infused. And the emotion and the image to this title, I can tell you, is that I looked at human beings and I wondered what is their common denominator. And if we were to make a superior language that all human beings can engage with, what would that language be? What would that value system be? That means I was looking at every human being and I'm wondering like, all right, what is that value? And I noticed that we must build a culture and civilization based on skill. That right now we don't care about skill. We care about appearance. We don't care for actuality, you know? We care for what it looks like. We don't care for how it works. And it's like being an inventor and spending the whole time inventing, but you invented something that looks like an invention. It is not an invention. To develop it, there has to come an extra effort. In anything in life that the person wants more to happen in, there has to be engagement. It's the same whether you want to see it in regards to one's personal, emotional life, you know, romantic interests, or if you want to see it in regards to the person wanting to succeed in business, the thing I've noticed is that you won't feel you deserve unless you go towards something yourself. Unless you see in front of yourself as if you're an audience of yourself and you see your own effort, then the mind opens its own paradise. Right now we're in a civilization where it's costume games and ideological costume games. That means people are not dressing in clothing. You know, do you know how many people I have seen and how many rooms I have seen? These people instantly change their ideological dress wear. The person, it's as if the person has never attempted to wonder about what is the common denominator between every sense of self they have ever been. And it's an existential dimension of being, really. Now, I am suggesting that skill, when you look at back in the day, knowledge wasn't so branched out and solidified, you know? Now we're in a situation where the philosopher and the scientist and the artist, they are all like in different categories. They feel their dimensions don't connect. The first thing we must remember, this is the secret to the polymath. Anybody who understands this will understand the polymath mind. That knowledge is related to a tree. It branches out. From one state of familiarity and intelligent activity, various lenses of different expressions can come. Sometimes it doesn't matter if I draw, if I give these talks, if I'm running, whatever it is, it's a state. And then the state is like the main branch, and all the other sub-branches are like the knowledge. This is why, for example, Da Vinci, I'm telling you, Da Vinci, this dude, if I remember correctly, he wrote with his left hand and drew with his, he wrote with his right hand and drew with his left hand, I think. And so this guy was drawing and writing at the same time. You know? And back in the day, they were interested in many fields because the questions were more, less specific, I would say. As if, imagine the most ultimate question, why are we here? And you start from that question and then you figure out why a lot of things are here. You know? Sometimes you have to care to look at your own unknown dimensions. Sometimes no one will see them. You know? Human beings are drawn to, let me tell you, we're not just creatures that are here to physically survive. We need to exist in each other's minds or we will feel we don't exist. And this is an urge within all human beings. You go bring whatever amount of psychologists, philosophers you want on this, I will tell you there is an urge. There is this emotion infused with expressions, ability. There are moments on this planet where you will suddenly see it's as if Thor accidentally dropped his hammer and it fell right into your hand. And it is the value and acknowledgement of the moment. Because let me tell you, you only will know the value of efficiency if you have seen the inefficient. If you have seen people fight like savages. If you have seen systems destroy people like savages. If you have seen even people destroy systems like savages, there is so much savageness. Violence is nothing new. It is what we evolved from. So any person violent in the species, we're walking back to the cave. Why don't you find a caveman's garb and a club and start hitting yourself in the head with it? Because that is violence. It is literally pushing us back into the cave. Because the mind is an ability. This commands of new skill, really, I can tell you a lot of these talks are inspired out of me feeling of like a vision that's a verb. I kind of say that I have two types of visions sometimes. Sometimes the vision is a verb. I can't pinpoint the time. So there's moments where I'm like, how can I tell you? In my inner realms, I see an event. You know, just like how you turn on the TV and you see an event. You know, it's as if I close my eyes and sometimes I see an event. And that event, if it's too much movement, if the self is changing in that event, I am not, that event is from my unconscious. Anything that doesn't relate to the human form that I've accepted, to me appears as my unconscious. So my relationship with my unconscious is like, I'm like, wow, my conscious, what is this consciousness? Now, why would the future command from you now a new skill? And why would a universal future want to see its skill? You see, one view, sure, every person's a person for themselves and nobody has access to their eyes, or the opposite. We all see each other's energetic existence. We are technically in some ocean of energy. You know, but experientially we are like icebergs in this ocean. I want to read a poem for you from Eternity's Flame, this poetry book which I've chosen to be the guide of this episode. Some wise men, the poem's called Silence Knows More. Some wise men have learned to listen to the silence that knows more before they were born. Born where? Isn't that the question of a timeless hour? The heart and soul are doors. to the one entrance that liberates a broken mirror from a false reflection. The noise of this world is how words have taken over the mind of man. Is the ink of this pen a rebel, both shaken and unshaken by glorious divinity? Our desire makes us move, but it is our wanting that invites suffering between the two handles of the clock. Before you check your watch, know you are beyond space and time. The joy of reality is the moment that is now. Silence is a great teacher if you realize all students are sound. Give life to all life, and you shall understand. There will come a force. We haven't experienced it because usually you can't experience this emotion. It comes from a collective archetype. And the more the civilization goes towards universal values, the more tolerance it will have to see universal change. Right now, people are not comfortable with each other because we each are working with the alphabet of our inner realms. Right now, who I am as a being, my inner realms has, when I say alphabet, I'm saying that, look at language, okay? The words I'm speaking right now, I'm saying right now, they're made of letters. So I'm saying, what are words? They're technically symbolic. Like, if you know how you go and create like a social media account, do you know, like a cyberspace equivalent to yourself online? So similarly, you can say language is the linguistic space. You know, it's literally an image in language, what it would look like. An image in words. So I'm saying an alphabet of letters is actually, the letters are being placed beside each other to create images. And I'm saying that every human being's value system is how all that they are aware of, whether consciously classified or subconsciously administered, you will find a skill from a selfless moment. That skill doesn't belong to you, any idea or any image in space and time. And people are going to be like, what do you mean it doesn't belong to space and time? I'm saying that the whole view is that we are shaped creatures. We're literally candles. That's the view, guys. We're candles. We illuminate for some time. We illuminate as our inner realm and our external realm. In front of your eyes, you're not God. But behind your eyes, your attention moves every thought. I have felt commands from my inner realms. Don't think that I've just looked at my inner realms. It's just been an empty room I've danced in. The inner realms are active. They are the subtler way you are actually moving your body as a mind. So you see, it's kind of strange, but like, evolution, what are you doing? You know, and evolution's like, all right, I'm going to make you into an object that can project itself as a subject. You know, and we're like, yo, thanks, evolution. And now, the moment we are an object projecting itself as a subject, that means, for the first time, the meaningless move towards meaning. That's what evolution means. We became paintbrushes with more clarified ink, with more clarified paint. And so it's all been the crystallization of painting. Even you look at people suffering. The person back in the day is like, yo, I don't have food to eat. You know, I don't have, like, I only have, let's say, like, you know, a few farm animals. How am I going to get through the winter? I'm suffering. That's how the guy was suffering back in the day. But nowadays we're suffering because of, for example, like, oh no, I didn't get acknowledged in a certain way. You know, nobody cares. You know, I'm telling you, the stories are endless. The stories are endless. There will be endless stories. But what are the words here for? They're here for experience. Direct experience is not a concept. It surpasses the language threshold. And I feel it is about time our species begins realizing that it's not just body, meaningless atoms, becoming a meaningful process of a human being. It is also the meaningful process experiencing its meaninglessness. I feel there's two dimensions. I feel the same moment. I feel our bodies are climbing the mountain, but I feel our minds are coming down from the mountain, and they're meeting somewhere in between the lifetime, where the mind is going towards the infinite and the body is going towards the void. And you as a being are like, universe, you serious? You telling me this physical elemental body of mine is gonna break down, but the mind has lived and lived and lived and lived? Do you know, in some sense, the purpose of life, sometimes I feel it's building physical momentum, so you realize the non-physicality of it. I feel we are, this plane of this plane of existence is an airport, and that is the healthiest view on it. That creatures just enter, they travel, and they leave. I've had moments where my inner realms, you see right now, most people think the thought of them is them. I'm out of curiosity, guys. How many people feel, listening to this, feel that the thoughts they have of themselves is them? Can anybody listening to this, please write in the chat section. These thoughts, like, just for a moment, think of what you are, and those thoughts that you have, are those thoughts you? Or is it that language doesn't capture a dimension, but is being observed by higher dimensions? You know, the Upanishad said the seer of the seen is unseen. Let me read this for you guys. The Upanishads is, I feel like they should write this on the back. They should write Upanishad quotes on the back of cornflakes boxes, you know? You know, pour milk with your Upanishads, you know? Come on, guys. I don't know who here will disagree with that. It's a bad idea to put Upanishad quotes on the back of cornflakes boxes. You know what I mean? The mother's like, let me see this cornflakes. You know, let me see this cereal. What's on the back? And the mother gets enlightened with like Vedic wisdom. I'm going to read quotes from the Upanishads, guys. Mini quote tunnel really quickly. I'm going to go through it. Parmananda says about the Upanishads, he who sees all beings in his self and his self in all beings, he never suffers, because when he sees all creatures within his true self, then jealousy, grief, and hatred vanish. Very true. It's like all those people who experience oneness. It's like, really, you can't celebrate oneness. You can't do anything about oneness. It's just one from the beginning. You see what I mean? It's kind of like Albert Einstein talking about a oneness of in the sense that Albert Einstein says man created time, so everything doesn't happen all at once. You know? So you can say that when a person sees all creatures, all beings, all senses of projections of self within their true self, that is, in some sense, you have become the ocean where the raindrops are falling in. Where every moment of your life, you think you are experiencing life. No, life is experiencing you. Life is experiencing you. Your body is living for your mind is living for your body, and the soul is like, let's see this dance go on. You know? The Upanishads say fire is his head, the sun and moon his eyes, space his ears, the Vedas his speech, the wind his breath, the universe his heart, from his feet the earth has originated. Verily, he is the inner self of all beings. That means energy, guys. Pretty much God is another way of defining energy that in some sense can't be conceived. The Upanishads say meditation here is not reflection or any other kind of discursive thinking. It is pure concentration, training the mind to dwell on an interior focus without wandering, until it becomes absorbed in the object of its contemplation. But absorption does not mean unconsciousness. The outside world may be forgotten, but meditation is a state of intense inner wakefulness. Let me tell you guys, the outside world may be forgotten. That means that there is a state where your inner realms are no longer conditional to your outer realms. That means your mind realizes it never had to just move in accordance to the body. So I'm telling you, your mind can be living a totally different life than your body, and it depends on your unconscious. So that I have through natural imagery, nature was like the first teacher of mine. I could tell you, because it's like I didn't care for teachers. I just went in nature with a problem, and then that my eyes opened. Sometimes I can't tell you. It's like if the gods had one facial expression, it would be laughter. They are all laughing. They're laughing at the human being's fear of itself. The Upanishads say dreams are real as long as they last. Can we say more of life? The Upanishads say human beings cannot live without challenge. We cannot live without meaning. Everything ever achieved we owe to this inexplicable urge to reach beyond our grasp, do the impossible, know the unknown. The Upanishads would say this urge is part of our evolutionary heritage, given to us for the ultimate adventure to discover for certain who we are, what the universe is, and what is the significance of the brief drama of life and death we play out against the backdrop of eternity. Somebody's saying this about the Upanishads, not in the Upanishads. There's, let me see, there's probably a better website. There's one quote I want to read for you, which it says the mind, oh, here. No, that's not it. But, it's these quotes, guys, it's this quote in the Upanishads where it says the one who sees the seer is unseen. Okay, here, maybe I think I found it. Oh, here. That which cannot be, this is in the Kena Upanishad, Kena. That which cannot be expressed by speech, but by which speech is expressed, that alone know as Brahman and know that which people here worship. That which cannot be apprehended by the mind, but by which they say the mind is apprehended, that alone know as Brahman and not that which people here worship. That which cannot be heard by the ear, but by which the hearing is perceived, that alone know as Brahman. In the Kena Upanishads, it also says, Brahman is known when it is realized in every state of mind. For by such knowledge one attains immortality. By Atman one obtains strength, by knowledge immortality. Perfect distinction. I'm going to give a comment on this. So guys, Brahman, a modern person would mean, what do you mean, brah? Brah, man? Guys, Brahman is the creative force of the universe. And when you realize all minds are being generated, they're being set into motion, and after some point, Swami Krishnananda even says this, that meditation stops when you notice the inseparability of the individual activity with the cosmic activity. You look at this face you have in the mirror and you wonder about every story throughout the eons that could have been part of this movement, and then you see the Atman. When it says by Atman one obtains strength, Atman is the individual, it's pretty much what people call the soul, and Parabrahman was the super soul. But I'm not going to talk about the Parabrahman because it's not a conceptual thing. Even the Atman is not a conceptual thing, but it says by Atman one obtains strength. Atman is familiarity with your own nature. So you can say Atman is knowledge of self, but immortality is the knowledge of the world. So there's two sorts of enlightenment the human being can get, because really the human idea is a self in a world. Are you not? Go ask anybody. Everybody is a self in a world. We're some self in some world. Now, even though sensory-wise we experience the same outer realm physically, that means if me and you were in the Louvre, we'd look at the Mona Lisa and we'd be like, yeah, we can see what what Da Vinci did there. So we can externally see the same thing, but what the Mona Lisa means to both me and you is something different. You know? Someone might look at Mona Lisa's smile and kind of be like, alright, you know? Because, guys, I don't know how many people know this. Da Vinci drew Mona Lisa. It was the wife of this duke, who Mona Lisa was actually. But Da Vinci, he had mastered drawing through self-portrait. So he pretty much used the principles of drawing himself, but drawing this woman. So when you look at that, you're kind of seeing Da Vinci's, it's literally as if like, if like, like, you know what I mean? It's an infusion of Da Vinci's self-image and also Mona Lisa here. So I'm saying the meaning of the artwork would be different. But in our inner realms, the meaning of the artwork appears the same sensory-wise, color-wise, in three-dimensional space, but how we comprehend phenomenology in three-dimensional space is beyond three-dimensional space, I find. So you obtain that knowledge by finding a contentment of the world. And usually when you wear the ring of the absent heaven, you in some sense kind of attain this. Guys, there's this quote that the person who I'm reading it from this website, the person saying it's the most powerful mantra of all Vedantic literature and the essence of all Vedanta is in the Mandukya Upanishads. Alright, this man is, if Mandukya was a soccer team, he'd definitely wear the jersey. Mandukya 7, it says here. In the Mandukya Upanishad, it says, Turiya is not that which is conscious of the inner subjective world, nor that which is conscious of the outer objective world, nor that which is conscious of both, nor that which is a mass of consciousness. Yeah, it's beyond every conceivable thing. It is not simple consciousness, nor is it unconsciousness. It is unperceived, unrelated, incomprehensible, uninferable, unthinkable, and undescribable. The essence of the consciousness manifesting as the self in the three states. It is the cessation of all phenomena. It is all peace, all bliss, and non-dual. This is what is known as the fourth Turiya. As the fourth Turiya. This is Atman, and this has to be realized. So literally, the Mandukya Upanishad is saying it's not enough that you're just aware of your inner realms, the subjective realms. Here it says inner subjective world, or just look in front of your eyes. So it's not enough that you're just conscious of what's in front of your eyes and what's behind your eyes. And it's not enough that even if you're witnessing both of them, and it's not even enough if all of this is some mass of consciousness, it's just you're aware of the whole consciousness movement. And then it says it is not simple consciousness, nor is it unconsciousness. This literally makes Carl Jung feel like, what am I doing with my life? Oh man. Carl Jung definitely read the Upanishads. He definitely. Where's the page here? So let's see. So then it says the essence of the consciousness, the essence, guys. The essence of the consciousness manifesting as the self in the three states. What are the three states? The waking state. I mean, here it gives a definition of it, but we can see the three states are the conscious waking state, the dream state, and the deep sleep state. So the essence of consciousness means what's at the core of consciousness. That means even when you're experiencing the unconscious, the essence of consciousness is there. When you're experiencing semi-consciousness, the essence of consciousness is there. When you're experiencing the conscious waking state, full consciousness, the essence is there. The essence doesn't leave. It's as if at some point, if you're a being, something is still being. So the essence of the consciousness, manifesting as the self in the three states, here it says it is the cessation of all phenomena. I called this in the ring of the absent heaven becoming confronting the void, the zero dimension. It is the cessation of all phenomena. It says it is all peace, all bliss, and non-dual. Technically, peace and bliss are synonymous and non-dual. So guys, you know what the Upanishads is saying? That ultimate space is not a concept. It's not for a person. The gates beyond this, the stargates beyond this dimension are not for humans. They're not for the human idea. Can you imagine that? That means, yes, there are higher dimensions, but we can't be human in them. We're probably just rivers of sight, probably. Guys, I found the exact quote I actually wanted to find. It's from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Brahman that is immediate and direct, the self that is within all. You cannot see with a capital T that which is the seer of seeing. You cannot hear that which is the hearer of hearing. You cannot think of that which is the thinker of thought. You cannot know that which is the knower of knowledge. This is yourself that is within all. Everything else but this is perishable. That means the witness of conception is an inconceivable truth. That's what the Upanishads is saying. That means your eyes at their core are inconceivable energy, or whatever, if we have to give it a symbol. So guys, my attention is on the chat section. Welcome everybody. Vincent, Aziz, Keith, Jamie, and Mick. Welcome to the chat, guys. Nice, we have people listening from Canada. Guys, anybody who just enters these talks, just write like where you're listening from the world. So anyways, guys, I'm just saying we have to re-evoke an attention to exploration, Even though on some level there has been many great sacrifices in history, and it has been sometimes cruelty's voice has been louder in history, and sometimes compassion's voice. I created this story, to be honest. I thought like this story could potentially be true, but I felt like the story, as I shared it as a story, I remember. The story was, I thought about playfully, guys. It's kind of like something I'm visualizing, right? So just entertain the story. I was thinking, what if Christopher Columbus, when he was a kid, his mother didn't let him out of the house, And Christopher was always looking outside the window. This imagine little version of Christopher Columbus. And Christopher Columbus is like, Mom, I want to get out of this house. And Christopher Columbus's mom is like, no, it's too dangerous, son. And the poor kid was trapped in a house, imagine. There's many messed up stories, guys. I'm not going to share it in here, but there is some in legend where true love has been enslaved. In European literature, we find examples of this. But anyways, and I thought maybe Christopher Columbus, when he stepped out of the house, he noticed the ocean was again another wall like the house. I don't know. It takes a lot for a person to go in an unknown, go to an unknown point with the risk of their own non-existence. I mean, I was thinking about Christopher Columbus, guys. This guy was on like the boat for such a long time. He was probably experiencing a psychedelic or some messed up psychology when he got like seasickness when he got to the land, you know? So you could totally see how Christopher Columbus, after being all those days on the boat, could have totally not been in a healthy state of mind to make decisions for what was going to happen to the land. But I don't know, human beings, they have painted pictures of life. I honestly, when I look at people, for me, it's not that it's not their how they look like which matters for me. It's what kind of film they're living in to themselves. What kind of film are they in? It's kind of like you have this feeling when you want to get to know people. When you want to get to know people, you kind of want to get a sense of what kind of world is this person living in. I'll give you an example where I was kind of shocked. For example, like my grandfather, his best friend from Iran, this 8-year-old man, his best friend from Iran, his grandson, in this family event where my grandfather was holding, his grandson was there, and it was me and my brother, and it was him and his brother. So what I'm saying is that, pretty much my grandfather had this gathering. This is years ago. And me and my brother, I have a twin brother. Me and my brother, in some sense, went to my grandfather's house, and his old childhood friend was there. But the grandkids of his old childhood friend were also there. And the grandkids invite me and my brother talk to, like, I see how like our grandfathers are friends. We start talking, and so like the families, like, different Persian families are getting acquainted. Those guys invite us to a house party. Me and my brother go to the house party, and I cannot tell you that I have not seen a house party more fucked up than this, guys. It was literally like, as if like when I went there, I don't know how to tell you guys. Sometimes evil is playing around in the shadows. And when I say evil, I don't want to say evil, the okayness for evil intent. So like we're sitting in this house party, then I see these two girls in the house party start fighting, like start literally punching each other. And it's like this odd sight. And then I get this realization, many people there were in this lower class of MMA. Like this kind of not legit MMA, but like this lower class tournament thing. There was a kid there, he had on his, like I asked him, what do you have written? Why did you write that on your, like, what's written on your wrists? Like, okay, how do I say it? On the kid in his knuckles, like imagine your forefinger, okay, make your hands into fists. Now imagine if you were gonna put like 4-letter words on your front of your knuckles, Pretty much the guy had written dead kids on his knuckles because he was on this low-level MMA tournament and he wanted to scare something. But when I asked him what's written on your fingers, he said thug life. He said something totally different than what was written on his fingers. I just noticed it's like chaos exists, order exists, and we are pilots. And we pilot through different places. And if you don't have the alertness, you can't pilot. So for me, it doesn't matter. I mean, the reason I was sharing that story with you is it was pretty much like, how can I tell you? It was there, like a level of savageness was very okay in that party. Okay, and so I felt like this is a person with a similar reality, and then I went and saw the person was the opposite of that reality. Do you know? Their decency, when it gets forgotten, when it doesn't show itself in the environment, humor is the last stance of decency before chaos. That means if a system becomes really evil, the only thing still keeping it, throwing some rope of decency to that evil culture, or I don't want to say culture, evil. When I say evil, I mean okay with the wrong to continue. That's the evil part. Doing a bad action, that's not evil. That's like you did something in one moment. But the continuation of that, yeah, that means there's some other program in the mind of the person. You know? It's like evil, like, oh man, this person has the evil application open in their mind interface. We gotta close this app, it's taking their battery life, you know? Wouldn't it be incredible, guys, if you could instantly, like, what do you call it? I'm just saying, guys, when I saw the color spectrum, any spectrum I've seen in my life was a testament to a universe, was a testament to many dimensions coexisting. We are not here to all be in the same system. We're not all here to be clones. It seems every person, as they live in life, they become a part of the world. And check it out. You know, right now, technically, every place I've walked in, I've been part of the background of people's minds. That means, who knows, maybe like the president of a country was walking, and when I was like, I don't know, 8 years old, my parents took me to this trip, like we went on this trip to this European country, Italy, and imagine like I don't know, but I'm saying imagine if the president of Italy was passing by and I was part of the background image of where that president was passing by. I'm saying like it's like we are the scenery for other people's lives, and when we live well, we become efficient scenery in people's life, you know? So anyways, let's return to the title, because skill is really what I want to dive into, and the importance of it, and how skill is the purest sort of I would say it's a sort of archetype of universal friendship. That means the enemy, even back in the day, there were, of course, you could say, yeah, there was a person, and the person had an enemy, kingdoms were at war, and so the person instantly killed the bad guy on the spot. But there was the warriors who were very skilled, and when they fought in battle, both warriors honored the skill level. That means the warrior, even if the opponent dropped the sword, would let the opponent pick up the sword because they wanted to challenge each other's greatest skill, right? And I thought, what if we built a civilization that doesn't want to defeat for future monetary reward, but wants to compete for skill? We create a civilization that skill becomes more valuable than currency, and I don't know how we're going to do it. I mean, I have some ideas, but sometimes when a project is too big, it's not a one-man thing. That means an advanced civilization is the work of all its members, you know? It is very easy to dismiss thought as self, and it is very easy to accept thought as self. I want to share with people that you can access skill, I would call it a rhythm, okay? And this is the way I explain it. I say that we look at fish in the ocean. What do you notice? The fish is swimming, it has a certain level of skill swimming, then the fish goes into the current that is in the ocean. And when the fish goes into that current, it begins to move. Its skill maximizes. It's as if, was Beethoven really a genius, or did he access a genius state? Did he reach some sort of state of mind where he noticed something no human being had noticed, and he's like, I will dare write these notes on this piece of paper, you know? And so his fingers moved before his mind could ever comprehend it. This was in this, again, this Japanese, guys, the Japanese storytelling industry is incredible. If somebody would tell me who I think are the greatest storytellers, I would say the Japanese instantly. They had this story of, I mean, of course, every mythology has its great. I mean, you can even say about Vedic mythology, the Mahabharatas, the epics, those are also very next level. But I'm saying that It was this Japanese narrative. I think Boku Academia, Hero Academia. It's pretty much this show where it's showing this world where in this world human beings are defined by their power, by their abilities. And they're defined by what their abilities can do for their society and what it can't do, you know? And so the whole narrative begins with this kid named Midoriya, who this kid in some sense has no power. He has no ability, but he has the mind. It's as if it's like he has a hero soul, but he doesn't have any ability, right? And so there's this scene where this kid displays heroism, where the heroism is how his body moved towards what was naturally right before articulating rationalizing the value of the decision. Sometimes in life you don't have time to be a calculator. You know, you have to instantly act, so you have to rely on the subtler information of your emotional being and the decency of how senses of other evoke in your mind. So for me, that was a world where people's skills define their value. But the issue is we have put a currency system, and this currency system, this monetary system, is not doing it for the right, it's not doing it for the skill. People want to have some stuff, but they don't want higher quality of the experience of life. Do you know how serious honor was? Are we all forgetting how back in the day when a person was dishonored, it was as if that person's internal realms were disconnected from reality? Like, you know, guys, it was one of those fascinations for me. I was wondering why would the samurai do harakiri? And then I read the Hagakure, the book of the samurai, and I realized because it was the last stance of the free will to the samurai, but at the same time, it was because the samurai had failed. The samurai had simulated honor and stopped the simulation. But at the same time, that was the archaic characteristics of that time. Right now, we don't need some messed up samurai honor. You know, we need, in some sense, a recognition of the efficient. For me, I'm telling you guys, I was raised in a theocratical society for some time. I know what it feels like to walk in streets where if you're not aware of religion, it's as if you're not aware of the laws of society. Do you know what that means? That means certain nations are religious. Technically, it's strange. It's as if they have archaic minds. Imagine certain governments, but these governments, their value systems are archaic. They're ancient. The situation is the call of action, the call of human engagement. Literally, you're a living being. You come across as energy conscious of itself. After 4 billion years of evolution, you can direct and pilot this energy. But what do you move to direct the energy of your life? And so most people move their image of self. That means when you sit down, like get a piece of paper, people, and on that piece of paper, I want you to write the word self. And I want you to write the word world. And then I want you to visualize, and most people, it's very easy to them to wonder about the future of their self. But they don't wonder about how the world will change. You know what that means? That means, like, let's say a person wants to become a billionaire. Okay? The person wants to become a billionaire, so the person's like, all right, let me see. The person has a desire. What does that desire mean? That means they want to see themselves in a state. They want to see them, they have an image of their own self in the future which they want. Okay? Honestly, yeah, that's a good way of saying it. Now I want you to say, don't think of just what kind of version of yourself you want in the future. Wonder about what world you want. I'm telling you, like, that this whole mysticism thing, people think it's just going into this non-dual witness till the end of time. It's like non-dual witness has been there. You have been oneness for eons. You've recently become dualistic. The ego is an advanced linguistic technology. It is only when Tony Stark thinks he's the Iron Man suit that his wife's like, "What the fuck, Tony? Get out of the suit." Oh man. Guys, I said this joke, I'm gonna share it because it's one of the most funniest random things that I came across in this talk. Guys, I said that Tony Stark, imagine one day his wife comes to Tony Stark, he hasn't left the basement where he's working for a while. Imagine Tony Stark also has kids, okay? I mean, Tony Stark was so smart, but he didn't think about his future. So Tony Stark, in some sense, imagine his wife comes and says, "Tony, dinner is ready." And Tony's like, "Honey, there's no Tony anymore." And Tony Stark's wife is like, "What do you mean, Tony? Get out of that Iron Man suit." She feels something's off. Tony Stark's like, "No, my name, yesterday I changed my first name to Iron and my last name to Man. I am legally Iron Man. Tony Stark doesn't exist. I am the Iron Man suit." Tony Stark thinks he's his ego. He thinks he's his Iron Man suit. Okay? Technically, the Iron Man suit was a metaphor for Tony Stark's ego. So, Tony Stark, imagine his wife is like, "Come for dinner." Tony Stark thinks he's the Iron Man suit. And Tony Stark's wife is like, "Tony, your kids miss you. You know, your kids can't hug an Iron Man." And eventually, divine intervention occurs and Thor's hammer falls, imagine, from the clouds accidentally right on Tony Stark's Iron Man suit, and the suit breaks, and Tony Stark realized he was never the suit, but when he was in it, he could be it. You see, we're not saying the ego is evil, bad, and all this. Whereas the ego is literally there. Alan Watts kind of made this clear when he said it's just attention to yourself, to a version of yourself. Right now, if I think I'm a king, all right, I got the ego of a king's, guys. I have a royal ego, okay? Anyways. I feel that in the future we will be a universal being, if we will have universal values. We will not care for individual consciousness in the same way we care for it now. We will be more content with the unknown. We may potentially become a silent, smiling species, and there's two options. So guys, people think right now, because we speak, we're going to speak till the end of time. That is not per se true. There may be, it's not recent, but there could be maybe, I'd give it 400 years, potentially, or maybe even less. There will come a point where we will not be creatures that speak. Right now, sounds entering our ears, it's like we will render the evolutionary use of our mouths and our ears void if we become aware of a field of intelligence. If we suddenly realize behind every person's eyes, everybody is part of the same mind field, that rather than we think we are this thing that from lesser dimensions is moving into higher dimensional vision, what if it is in some sense from a higher dimensional state simulating a lesser dimensional experience? That means, what if we are looking at our own shadow? What if an eternal being is looking at its shadow, and its shadow is its lifetime on Earth? I'm being played poetically here, but I'm saying that's like, it's just a wonder, Time is really, like, it's, the question for language is easy, guys. Anything, the argument to counter any language is very easy. Somebody comes and says, what can you say about time? You say before time was a concept, what was it? You know what happens when there's no time? Everything. Everything just happens. It's one grand happening. For me, there was a time I was explaining to someone, they asked me, and sometimes when I feel like a person has found an ability to be their simple self, I share very like real stuff with them, because really it's all about the eyes. It's there with even relationships. You see, the mind has a sight. Okay, people are not just looking through their biological eyes. They have access to imagination and their inner realms. You should not fear your own efficiency. You must wonder why so easily you have accepted your inefficiency. I feel all karmic reward is a test of endurance, sincere endurance. That is the secret. That is the secret. That after some point you will find yourself as a cornered animal in the space-time continuum, but you maintain your civility. I'm telling you, the inner realms can pull you. Like, for example, I do speak about Terence McKenna, for example, Aldous Huxley in these talks, because they were notable thinkers and they shared a lot about society. Like, I learned a lot about society from them. But I'm telling you, pushing someone into, for example, suddenly going to the Amazons and taking ayahuasca, or the person, see, we think we need to have an extreme approach constantly because the extreme has become synonymous with the complex. For me, problems are complex, answers usually are simple, no? Answers are simple, so the person can feel that they will be closer to a state of answers if they can maintain a simple view of themselves. Okay? The Yoga Patanjali Sutras was constantly saying that the truth of your essence and the essence of the universe is something that literally the seer of sight can't see. That means there's something here in this moment that is aware that you are aware that you are aware. And that awareness is the inconceivable, and we have feared it, and we have cowered, we have hidden in the bunkers of our knowledge, not realizing that language was sparked in the void. It was as if it was all a silent evolution, and then suddenly, and the two avenues of that silent archaic revival, when Terence McKenna says there's going to be an archaic revival, let me tell you, in archaic times there was great silence, but great animation of the inner realms. That means the imaginations were much more wilder because people were more savage. Like when you look at the Greek mythology, you look at the poetry, the gods had weapons. In Vedic mythology, they had weapons. And it was as if the god was in the image of the man. That means men had weapons, so they looked at gods and they're like, God probably has a weapon. And so I'm telling you, it is this view. It is this view that we are constantly imbuing life. We are never just a self, and we're never just in one world. The world is changing. The self is a reflection of how the world is, but there's also the added dimension of the free will. So the unknown witness is in some sense the ultimatum. The unknown witness means that there is no conceivable personal free will to move the moment. So that means if we are to experience higher dimensions, they move us. We don't move them. Do you see what I mean? Because the moment we move them, we can't tell apart if we are in our dimension or not. So there needs to be this incredible level of inner stillness. That means physical stillness. The person just stops moving, sits down. Let's say like you're in nature around a tree or somewhere. You sit by a tree and you just sit there. You're still. You keep yourself silent and still. But now it's about that inner silence. That means after some point, it's not that the person shouldn't have thoughts. Mr. Within says if you're meditating and you have thoughts, that's supposed to happen. You know, it's like meditation is literally like waiting 10 to 20 minutes until the early primal instinctive ripples of the mind settle, then you come to a more of a gentleness, you know. So study yourself, wonder about your world, and then you'll have contentment. Because I am telling you, we are not just material phenomena. We are matter that evolved to a subject to itself. That's mind-blowing. That is so weird. Do you guys not see how we are so different than all the other species on this planet? Like, are you serious? Did nature glitch in the system or something? Did nature suddenly, like, you know, accidentally pour more salt in human design? Like, what is it that we're way more advanced than all the other species? And our advancement comes that animals are not aware of their mortality. They are their environment. So think about this. You go look at an animal. I don't know how many people have really studied animal psychology. And a person like, you know, an MMA fighter would be like every day, man. Every day. An animal can't see beyond its environment. The imagination of the animal is the environment. You know, that means that all those cows that are being slaughtered, do you know? The greatest thing that happened to their mind and brain and their imagination, in some sense, how can I tell you? It is a cruel world because sometimes our ends are spontaneous. That is the cruelty of life. This is why you can't depend on time. You can't live the life only by the watch. You have to realize there is more to it. That you are the painter of every world you have in some sense seen meaning in. We are painting meaning over a life that is happening way before we did. Let me tell you, truth appears to the human being experientially as more light in the room. Do you know how many tears have fallen from the faces of human beings? Do you know how many of those tears have been for sorrow and how many of those tears have been for joy? Rabindranath Tagore says one of the most incredible sentences quotes that I would say if there was a museum of language, this quote deserves to be in it. Rabindranath Tagore says, beauty is truth's smile when she beholds her reflection in a perfect mirror. Let me check this, guys. There we go, guys. I found the exact quote. Beauty is truth's smile when she beholds her own face in a perfect mirror. There we go. Beauty is truth's smile when she beholds her own face in a perfect mirror. That means beauty doesn't arise unless truth is content with how the moment is perfect. That means it's as if like you wondering, is the body perfect or is the mind? I could totally see how imperfection is the destination of the body. But in regards to perfection, perfection seems to be the destination of the mind. How incredible. Our bodies are becoming more imperfect, but our minds and awareness to the world is becoming more perfect as we physically exist in this life. So your mind is moving towards perfection, your body is moving towards imperfection, so the mind has to use this perfection the mind is using that perfection to balance the imperfection. So as the physical body changes throughout the years, the mind is making up for that change by attaining for greater perfection. This is why you have to speak to every old person as if they deserve a medal of how long they've endured through. You know, they say respect your elders, but they never tell children why. Because they are literally veterans in the world. It's like they're human beings who have dwelled, their eyes have lived through so many days. Do you know? It's as if they're ancient spirits walking, you know? When I become an old man, it's going to become like that, you know? I'm going to feel like an ancient spirit. Or I don't know, guys, maybe my exit's sooner. Rabindranath Tagore says, beauty is simply reality seen with the eyes of love. Rabindranath Tagore says, by plucking her petals, you do not gather the beauty of the flower. That's the thing, guys. Wow. Great point here. If, let's say right now, everybody was like, all right, Mr. Within, let's build a civilization that's skill-based. You know, as if we're wondering about how skilled the future will be, and that's inspiring us to attempt skill, you know? Sometimes here's the thing, I think anytime the person gets enough of a contentment with the moment, they move surpass it. That means when the cup gets filled to the brim, whatever that pours out of it is an additional surplus. Right? So it's as if you're selfish, the selfish dimension of the human being is like the cup. But when the selfish dimension is satisfied, all these billionaires become philanthropists because they have reached the peak of their ego, but they don't realize every day they wake up, it's as if like a new approach to the self. There's something about something about an atmosphere of decency that allows simple activation of greatness, I would say. There has been moments where I did not have any thought. I had no ambition, no care. I literally, just like how, like right now you don't care about a rock in the garden, like let's say, you know, in your backyard, you don't care about that rock in the backyard. It's as if it's not in the scope of the attention. And sometimes in those states, it comes into your attention. You know? Life is strange. Sometimes when you run after the butterfly, you're a step behind. But sometimes when you're not even running after it, it lands on your shoulder. You're like, what? Everything comes to us that belongs to us if we create the capacity to receive it, says Rabindranath Tagore. He says you can't cross the sea by merely standing and staring at the water. You can never unravel, and you gotta like have this wonder to want to see what else can happen to your life before your eyes close. That wonder is always there, but the conditioning of the person keeps them away. So I feel people all have incredible levels of skill, but it's in their unconscious. And if they were kind of had a sort of Jungian honor to march into the unconscious and make it conscious, if you for a second forgot who you were and were like, all right, let me for a second think as if, what if I was on an island right now? How would I engage the world into meaning? You see, when you're alone, the responsibility of meaning and what life is up to your mind. Do you know? But when you're with others, you don't have to just, it's like you don't have to worry about who orders the pizza. You're just, watching the game. You know? So the community is something where it's like the moment the tribal dynamic created, of course, there's various archetypes, different members of the tribe. This creates various atmospheres of trust and the lack of it. There was a time where I thought, all right, chaos, order will win. And then I was like, what is this? It's literally oscillating. Certain times in history, it's very chaotic to be a creature. Certain times it's very ordered. Right now, it's as if like, you know what it is? I'm going to say something playful here. So hear it very playfully. But I'm saying like, it's as if man said, God, give us heaven. And God's like, all right, I can just give you this so far. And we have the civilization left here. Whatever avenue you take, whether you want to see a personality to the cosmos or beyond the cosmos, or if you want to see yourself as a personality in the cosmos, you know how many choices lead people's lives? It's not even their belief. You know what that means? That means literally the person can come and say, I believe I am goodness incarnate. And then it's like the person the moment after suddenly notices something bad, automatically mind moves to balance the thing. That means that I don't even see myself as a good or a bad person anymore. It's not that I'm ignorant of morality and I care for law. Like I care for the laws of civilization a lot because that's really what's keeping. Those are like, the joints of the civilization's ethos, People tend to fight either only when they feel they don't have enough. So any member of civilization that doesn't feel they have enough could automatically blame the outside. That means most people, when they see a politician do something bad, they blame the politician. But let me tell you, the wise person should blame themselves. They should be like, oh my God, what was I doing? And so let me tell you, people right now should realize something very interesting. I feel politics for now requires human leadership. We're not that advanced to let go of human leadership. But I don't know what AI is going to do. But I'm saying that imagine we elect the president, the politician becomes president, but now the world comes and helps that politician see their blind spot. as if every day the politician comes and sits in the room. We should make it a situation that whoever becomes president, in some sense, is learning incredible amounts every day. And what I mean by that is that, of course, we'll say a machine learns better than a human being. But I'm saying, like, the tribe has to make up for the blind spot of the leader of the tribe. Because we cannot expect political systems to be as up-to-date as their most up-to-date citizen. That means there will never be, the political system is behind. The political system changes every 4 years in Western, in major countries, but I'm saying, like, people, how many times do they change in a year? By next year, you could totally be someone else with a totally different style, totally different attitude, totally different focus upon reality. Do you know? For me, I went towards mysticism. It opened me up to geometry, and I was suddenly left between, the Western and Eastern Enlightenment, only to discover that it's as if, like, we have to return to the world. It's like we have to act in a Western Enlightenment. The outer realms need to follow the Western Enlightenment. The inner realms need to follow the Eastern Enlightenment. The Eastern Enlightenment was acceptance of the self. The Western Enlightenment was rebellion against the self. That means, well, if you look at Western civilization, even America, most people don't realize this, but I feel America is an emotionally incredibly mature country. Because when you have a country, many countries have civil wars and whatnot, of course, and the time spans and life cycles of countries are different. Do you know that means, like, not all countries are the same, but for example, America is a country that's experienced the Civil War, right? And when you think about that, that means that it has had an inner issue. Do you know? Now that inner issue, you cannot have a problem and then live past it and not be stronger. Sometimes your skills only arise once you test your own potential. So I'm saying, it's like, if we thought about the psychology of nations, it would have to do with the events that are in some sense setting the vibes of the culture and civilization as the future, of the society as the future generations wake up into that society. Because on some level, guys, it's storytelling at its finest. I realize right now, me speaking to you, you thinking I'm a person, me thinking you're a certain person, this is all existing in what I call the linguistic simulation. So technically, our commonality as human beings is through a simultaneous infusion of the objective realms and of the inner realms and the outer realms. What does that mean? That means you have to have a certain ability to see what's in front of your eyes, and then you also have to have an ability to also see what in front of your eyes communicates that is a projection behind your eyes. When somebody asks you the time and you look at the sky, and you tell them a time that's maybe like by 40 minutes off, so many things, if you never try, you never get to see a new dimension of yourself. So many things I've regretted, but some things I haven't, And after some point, you realize the show goes on. That means as long as there's a tomorrow, you can literally navigate, you can pilot on, I feel now there's an importance to pilot our inner realms, and that would technically mean skill. So my experience through skill is a bit kind of archaic. I will tell you, like, there's I try something so many times simply because it's it's kind of like I experienced the same thing when I came across chess as a kid, when I came across, like, for example, the Rubik's Cube, when I came across certain levels of mathematics, when I came across, I don't know, whatever, even in accordance to just writing, you know? There was this view that I could see a version of myself succeeding behind my eyes, but I couldn't see that version outside. Kind of like Michelangelo, who said, I saw the angel. He was a sculptor, Italian sculptor. He said, I saw the angel in the stone and I set it free. The dude saw a chunk of rock, saw the statue of an angel inside inside the rock from his inner realms, exactly sculpted the rock with the precision of his inner realms. That means back in the day, I feel their inner realms were way more vivid. Right now, with every breath we take, they're like, are in your inner realm is like the seashore, where you write something on the sand and the waves constantly come and smooth it out. That means if I'm saying something and then I just take maybe like 10 breaths, then I'm literally in a situation where it's as if the shore has been wiped, you know? And it depends on your momentum as a human being. It's like fearing the hyperspeed or hyper efficiency. So I would say a theme for this episode would be don't fear your own hyper efficiency, see what it would look like. Pretty much everything in the self is in a dualistic game. That means it's either win, lose, heaven, hell, success, failure. Do you see what I mean? It's so old school. It's so either this or that. So many people define it, but I feel that we should define our success based similar to a business based on a short-term view, which is based on our experience and based on our existence. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. That means your short-term modality on success and failure is in some sense how you are experiencing life. I want you as a human being to just consider that there is a dimension to your intelligence where it's just experience, okay? And what experience means is being conscious of change. Because a new experience is something different, so technically something's changing. Short-term experiential dimension, long-term existential. For example, I'm a person that I'm trying to get rid of the habit, but I smoke, for example, and that's not a good long-term strategy, but short-term strategy, it's, I don't know, giving me some emotion. But I'm saying, like, it's not a sufficient long-term strategy. The greatest strategy towards functioning in this human life is where your long-term is efficient and your short-term is efficient. Your short-term is efficient if you realize the mind is free. Your long-term is efficient if you realize the body has to be disciplined. So for me, for example, I've had way more experience of concentration, like very disciplined I'm very disciplined in concentration, but in certain things, temptations still move my fingers. But eventually I concluded that there's so many things to fear in this life. And then I thought about this idea that literally a person can wake up. I remember something I would hear when I was in Iran. I remember I heard it from, I felt what was like a supermarket owner or something. He said something like, there was this sentence, it was like, tomorrow our breath could leave us. God can take our breath. Iran is a theocratical society, so a lot of people, there's religious lingo to speech usually. And so it's like, even if you were a kid in Iran and you did a backflip, people on the side, let's say, they would have rosaries and they would be like, mashallah, mashallah. And mashallah means like, kind of like God's will. Look at God's will, you know? Or like the greatness of God or something, you know? After some point, guys, you see there is energy can't be hidden. Energy can't be hidden. Nature just goes on, you know. It's all attention. You know, I remember I had this dream where in the dream I died. And it was such a weird dream. Because in some sense, I wouldn't consider its accuracy because the body is awake technically, so you will never experience death. But in some sense, it was a disassociation with a physical shape. So on some level, this physical existence is an elemental three-dimensional formation. It's kind of like, like it's very strange, guys. On a rock in the middle of nowhere, the dirt stood up and now is looking at the earth and wondering if it's really dirt. Alright, guys, had to handle something. Guys, here's the thing I learned. I learned it really from not myself, I learned it from other people around me, where after some point, there is no purpose to doubt. After some point, you just accept what is there and you move. And I'm telling you, when you embrace this concept of piloting, then your skills become different, you know? Like if you think about it, what is happening even is like we're a bunch of human beings, we're a bunch of existential creatures, and we're wondering if experience is just in a separate dimension than existence. If experience, right now we feel we can't experience anything because in some sense we feel our existence is filtering our experience, is projecting our experience, okay? And so, I'm saying we have reached a point where we're also wondering, is our experience simultaneously projecting our existence? Mystical thought says yes. If experience is projecting existence, that means existence is one side of the coin. That means all of your fear of anything physical is just half of what you've seen so far. Do you know? So I'm saying that experience projecting existence, like it fascinated me when I realized, even though I am a physical being, but when I look at my identity, my personality, my personhood, is that physical? Is that physical? Are your thoughts of you physical? So we are simultaneously identifying with a material phenomenon, but simultaneously also being a subject. You telling me I'm an object and a subject at the same time? All right, guys. I had to take care of something. Uh, anyways, guys, anytime that you hear silence in this talk, it's a good time to just, Shira 101, she says silence is also conversation. Sometimes it's like there's a strange beauty in noticing space, not just constantly stuff moving in it. So, anyways, I don't want to make this too metaphysical. I want to speak about skill. I got to keep bringing it back to that. Let me see if all right, where is this? All right, I can't find it. All right, hang in there, folks. Hang in there. All right, I'm just going to read this poem. There we go. It's from this book I wrote called Rahmana, okay? It's called You Must Make a Decision. The poem's called You Must Make a Decision. The poetry work's called Rahmana. This was written in 2016. When a book turns into a mirror without a reflection, you are enlightened. The free are born out of a desire of great transcendental bliss. Who has lied to you before you stood here? Sometimes we are professionals in self-deception. Never forget, child, clarity is an internal entrance into all externality. Clarity is an internal entrance into all externality. Nice. I'm kind of impressed with myself right now. What suffices as a breath of a god is the ability to see the ocean in the drop. You must make a decision in order for the eons to have meaning in an instant. So a decision pretty much gives eons of movement suddenly in an instant meaning. So every decision projects meaning. It gives life to, it gives space to the archetype to move. So any movement through the archetype allows the archetype to continue. So if you're a warrior, if you're like the war's over, but still people are running at you, even though the war seems over, but still there's opponents to fight, then it's as if you're still in the warrior archetype, I think when a civilization becomes aware that they are not language, that's the first step. When people become aware they're not their thoughts, they realize they're watching their thoughts. So technically, you are kind of not your body because the cells of your body has changed. Your body is not your body anymore. It's a different body. So similarly with our ideological constitution, based on our experiences, you don't have the same eyes as you had 10 years ago. So you see, we are actually not a shape. There is no such thing as death. Everything is constantly changing. We are witnessing change. Okay. I think the chat section is it's a theatrical performance. Oh man. Skill. Here. I mean, guys, I think maybe we have to choose a new word for skill because the word kill is in it. It's like everybody who thinks about skill, why are they so violent? Because the word kill is in skill, like it's like we don't have to skill ourselves, I I'm saying this. Okay, here I'm gonna read for you how the Saint Dictionary defines it. uh, for me, the whole point is, guys, just to say, I'm trying to draw a big picture for this, but pretty much what I'm trying to say is that you go into this preferential state, you trust the moment, then you start noticing the movement of thought. As you notice the movement of thought, okay, you're noticing how change is literally happening, both in the inner realms and the outer realms. So you can observe, for example, what do you call it? A squirrel jump from the branch of one tree in autumn to another tree, but you can also close your eyes and visualize neural synapses happening, you know? So I'm saying it's like you have to study what you are only once every day. And for me, the day changed to more how it's evoked. So I stopped caring about the past too much, and the future, I was conscious. I would watch my step, but I would say I wasn't too focused. Even though when I give these talks, it's like when I sit down, I ask myself on a rock in the middle of nowhere, what is important? And I see that there's two options, you know? Either we continue or we discontinue. And all the actions in society, this could be modern secular ethics, where it is just inefficiency. That means it's like the value is based on the destination. We're all captains on, you know what it is? In this book, hopefully I'll be giving out soon. Guys, it's strange. Like when I give these talks, I'm in more of a vocal creative vision, but when I write, it's a totally different voice. I have a different speaking style on paper, you know? Skill, the simple definition is the ability to do something well, really. Thanks, dictionary. Thanks. So well is subjective. So your skill is subjective. So your skill, this makes perfect sense. You have to create the space for your skill. You have to create the space for your skill, okay? And the person has to allow their mind to realign. I don't know how many people do this, how many people are comfortable with that. No, because when I speak, it's more of a personal filter. Sometimes when I write, it's not I don't write it as a person. The pen is not moving as I don't feel like there's literally no idea. It's just this pure being, this emotion, and then I just write, you know? So that's why sometimes even you see it in many people's writing. Writing gives you access to a third person voice. What that means, the true writer's style is not just the person writing like how they speak. It inevitably becomes the creative whims. It becomes like everybody is piloting in the sky. Some writers are like, they are making their planes or doing backflips and all these next level stunts. Do you know what I mean? So your writer's style is really, when you look at a writer, their style is not important. It's what their style communicated, what it showed. And I'm telling you, you have to drop the ideas of yourself that are realistically inefficient. Do you know? Or let me say it like this. I don't want to say it like that intense. You know, it's like, drop your ego. It's Like, drop your ego now. Guys, it's just skill. You're just this intelligent creature. You have to implement, you have to apply, you have to literally have experiential efforts that means something. You have to engage with, and it's a testament to how much effort you're going to have. Okay? So that's the thing. The person, I'm telling you, technically, if you think about it, let's just rationally think about it. Let's say right now you want to attain any skill. Okay, first there's the realism factor of it. That's as if like a sieve that the idea must pass through. And then it's about the practicality and the attainability of the skill. And so, for example, I could tell you that I experienced the kind of complete flip. In my childhood, my inner realms were locked down. I like, even if a person spoke to me, I would never even be myself in front of them. I would be whatever I felt was like, all right, what algorithm of behavior does this moment need? You know, and it would be that kind of thing, like where every individual consciousness in the room, it's like you suddenly giving a talk in the room and suddenly four people entering the room. So then your talk, it's like, of course the speaker now is considering other dimensions of mind, you know. I'm telling you, pretty much, I'm saying there is a way we're being in the moment which is conceptual, individual, conscious, objective, and there's a way where we're being which is not conceptual, or we can say it may appear subjective, but the subjective is like the puppet of the unknown. Do you know how thoughts are moving? Or how the thought is? It's kind of strange. It's as if we're experiencing the images of physical reality, but we're also experiencing the images of how physical reality can deviate in different spectrums of future or past or whatnot, right? So you gotta tell some people, some mystics take off the watch when they meditate, so that means their inner realms don't animate as a story. But some mystics keep their watch on when they meditate, so then they think they have endless past lives and universal memory, and they think they're endless creatures and they're endless phenomena. I'm saying literally, it's like you kind of putting a music track on repeat and thinking you're in paradise. It's like, no, it's just on repeat. You know, it's like this, a lot of stuff is cyclical, you know, a lot of stuff is like we're in like a wheelbarrow being rolled around, the whole civilization. Yeah. So I feel the most incredible position we can go as a civilization is that we treat our planet as a ship. And Buckminster Fuller talked about this, Spaceship Earth. Marshall McLuhan spoke about this idea of Spaceship Earth. And what is this idea? Is that really, if you think about it, we are right now driving cars. We're one day wondering if we can drive our solar system. And so there are in certain scientific circles, guys, I'm telling you, science is like the older brother of philosophy and metaphysics, you know, and it's like the older brother, in some sense, defending. You know what that means? That means like even when the religious person who thinks science is inefficient or evil or whatever, that person will suddenly, when they get sick, the hospital will take them in and they will realize science is the older brother. Science is the older brother that suddenly defends the younger brother in battle. You know what I mean? So that's the thing. It's like, for me, if science is like the shield of man, The rationality is our shield. It's our defenses. When we go into a moment, we look at the factors, we look at the variables, we look at the intelligent activity, we notice every micro movement, and the micro gives you access instantly to the macro if you wonder about the reverse. And the wonder is always an infusion of the unknown, right? So most people fear the unknown, but I'm telling you, so many things are unknown. You don't think about your heart, it just beats. You don't think about your breathing, you just breathe. You don't think about the world, it just spins. A lot of things are just happening on their own. We're a conscious participant. There's something that was always like, I could totally see, like, it was the lack of honor for the collective movement. Imagine being a general in a battlefield, your kingdom is about to go to war with another kingdom. And you're in the battle, you know, you're one of those kings, let's say, that's like in the front lines. You're like, all right, what the hell, everyone, you know, let's it's a team activity. And so imagine you're like this, okay, let's say you're this general in this battlefield and you're about to, the sieging kingdom is upon you and you're like about to get ready to fight and march in. And then suddenly one of the soldiers is like, beside the general, is like, sir, this sword is too heavy for my hand. I don't like holding it. And the general's like, are you kidding me? We're all gonna go, you die right now. And you're like, the sword is heavy in my hand? That soldier would just shout. If I was in the place of that general, I would just shout, "Wake up!" And then I would run into battle. You know. I don't know, guys. Life is like that. It's not per se perfect existentially, but there can be moments of experiential contentment. That's what the Buddha saw. The Buddha was this kid, pretty much equivalent to this rich kid, son of an emperor. And the emperor saw him, and he evidently had this birthmark of a wheel on his foot. And this sage was like, the emperor was like, "Sage, what does this mean?" And the sage was like, "All right, what am I going to tell this emperor?" And the sage was like, "Your son, this mark means either your son will be a great king." And then the king's like, "Nice, you said what I wanted to hear." And then the sage says, "But also this means that your son can also be a great sage." That guy who gave that idea to the emperor was so smart. He literally gave both ultimate options. Your kid can become an emperor, a king. Your kid can become the most illuminated holy man, right? And so the king was like, "Yo, no son of mine's gonna be an illuminated holy man." And the king, in some sense, traps Buddha and Buddha for a long time. It's like when people get old, the king demands even the servants to change and constantly young servants to come. Except one servant, which his name is Ananda. He was like Buddha's friend or something. So what happens is one day Buddha leaves the empire and then he sees suffering. He actually sees the mystical Rubik's Cube for what it is. He sees people get old. There is illness. There is even emotional suffering. There's so many ways that we are something that's created, and throughout time, eventually, it's as if the waves subside back into the ocean. I sometimes feel it's a good idea to treat that any person you meet, imagine any room you enter, There are greater beings in that room, but don't imagine those greater beings as some fictitious divine agency. Imagine it as the potential of the people you see. What is skill but realizing the world is alive before you and you can choose to acknowledge it or you can choose not to? The more the person thinks that they are a story separated from the story of the life of the universal sector, you have forgotten your humanity before you have realized it. Dimensions grow out of one another. Life is endlessly being soil for new dimensions to arise. And on some level, I remember the talk before this, it was called How Far Can the Human Design Echo? And I was really wondering, after I gave the talk, I sat down and I thought about it and I was like, wow, like where will it lead? Is it the human shape, the biological body that needs to echo? Do we just need to survive as creatures, not care about our inner decency, our inner realms, our minds, just be like savage animals in competition till the day we die? Where are we going? Sometimes you never know what can bring forth skill. It is just to see the full application of the intelligence that you are. I feel that is the inner purpose of life. I feel people should seek knowledge not for gain. There's nothing you can hold on to forever in this life. You don't even hold on to your physical existence. After some point, it's like, you know, the flower has lived its life and it will either be picked or it will, in some sense, return back to the soil. That's why we shouldn't fear the unknown, because that's where we were before we were born, and that's where we will be after. So we shouldn't fear the unknown. That means we shouldn't fear the potential of skill, and I feel a civilization that suddenly has a new mystery will have a new ethos. The issue is to building an advanced civilization, we want 8 billion people to care for something in an advanced way. Eight billion people who have 8 billion different worlds. You can't do anything really. On some level, you're like, if the person cares, they open their eyes to their better life. If the person doesn't care, they don't open their eyes. And on some level, it's like there's no instant victory. All things are like an accumulation of smaller battles. And that's why I'm saying endurance is the key to skill. If you just for a second felt that you wouldn't be content not knowing something, you would have an incredible pursuit of it. And sometimes so many people don't realize this, but true talent is born from a personal search into the craft. You have to literally, some art forms, you're welcomed by them, by the art form, as if the child is like the person who was a gifted guitar player, suddenly somebody came and gave them a guitar, gifted them a guitar. You know, it was as if the child was born around its what it required. Sometimes I feel it's not even per se just a game of self. It's that a certain percentage, is like the self is a the self is neither an outer object or, as Hegel would say, an internal object. The self is literally watching the screen of phenomena. And you can move through levels of that phenomena with certain conditions of free will. I feel free will is a quality of a much more macro process. It's an attempt, guys. It's like most people don't realize sometimes failure in something new you're doing is your entrance into that world. It's kind of like the first phases of any sort of societal integration. You see, it's really fascinating. We are like the same, we're part of the, we're all like human beings, but we don't experience the same humanity. One person can be cruel, one person can't be cruel. So it's kind of like there is one species of human being, but no creature is the same creature. So there isn't any cloning thing going on. All right? So we are a unique branch of our species. So every person that is alive, We are living for the eyes of tomorrow. I don't know what self we can live for, really. The past is gone. The future hasn't happened. The present appears as an individual object that somehow is considering itself as a subject. And the consideration of the true nature of the mind is so beyond the experiential levels of the language threshold that you will realize that there are ways you have been alive that had nothing to do with your heartbeat, that had nothing to do with your lungs, but it was in some sense had nothing to do with any physical organ or cell. It was literally how the mind in some sense returns. In mystical thought, it was as if, like, you know how you go rent a car, a transmigrating, you know, eternal soul would sometimes rent an incarnation. You return. Trust me, my attitude towards this life is not I have. Yeah, life, I got a lot. Like what at the end life slams me down, like those WWE shows. You're like, oh shit, everything has to be dropped. You see, look at your fingers. You see, it's the space between them that allows them to be their individuality, and sometimes it is the space between dimensions that can make us inspire towards them. I feel we have to get ready for perhaps in 120 years we're going to be at states of mind where we're not going to see human design as the ultimate archetype. We're going to become literally such an awareness. It's like energy through the human framework is reverse engineering itself to being conscious of itself, but energy at its core has no identity. It's just instantaneous being. So in some sense, any sort of movement out of the sphere of the ego is inconceivable. So we are like, I don't know, it's kind of incredible. It's as if everybody has a value because everybody's eyes have raised their civilization in their own light. The mind is a light, it's energy, something is here, you know? Something, you know, and it's true. I mean, like on some level, you can't ignore the fact that very educated neurologists, you know, professors in neurology are saying that free will is an illusion. Can you imagine that? On some level, the society is saying, follow your dreams, you know, work hard. But on another level, free will is an illusion. You kidding me? What am I working hard for if it's an illusion? So you see, the illusion, the argument against the illusion, that means if the illusion was in a debate, what would come across to it, the mighty force that would challenge this titan, would be that how is the illusion there? And so if truth is true, it is ever present. It is there before anything else was. Can you imagine a state of mind before anything else was? And that's what's going to happen at some point in this life physically. But when you acknowledge that internally, you come to space. Do you know what that means? That means all the words, thoughts, ideas, everything any being has ever said to you, they have been images hovering around you, which you have chosen to grab. It's kind of like how the Buddha says in his inner realms, like Buddha sitting under a tree, but in his inner realms, I don't know, like the archetypes of evil shoot arrows at him. And it's like this kind of shadow of arrows. Tons of arrows are coming, and in an instant he just smiles because he knows he is in charge. Do you see? It's like I don't feel you can become a person until you wonder about what really the moment is to you. And most people, when they want to think about their life, they just go towards the future, right? You're like, okay, what am I going to do tomorrow? But sometimes you can just sit down, get a cup of tea or coffee, and just close your eyes. You know, let's say if you're outside, put your chair in front of the sun, and just sit down, drink that coffee in that sunlight, close your eyes, you know, and for a second ask yourself, who am I? And that question for me is like a supernova explosion. It is literally a giant clapping in the loudest way. Change is our connection towards a universal intelligence. So we have to become advanced eyes. We are advanced viewers of an evolving, shaped world. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was thinking, like, if an extraterrestrial kind of, like, you know, crowd of folks was, like, looking at Earth and they were trying to say, they'd be like, okay, these guys are savage and they are killing each other and, you know, they are killing each other over images, ideas, and color, you know? But they also make tables and they make computers and they make podcasts. My mind has animated. I've pretty much, like, I sat down on the porch and I was like, all right, let me try this out. And I wondered about the most chaotic version of myself. The most chaotic, the most vicious, cruelest, intense version of myself. And I also wondered about the greatest version. And it was like on my left side, I was seeing the chaotic self version of myself. And on my right side, in my inner realms, I was seeing the ordered version of myself that I had evoked. And then for a second, both versions looked at me. Both versions looked at me, then they turned around and looked at each other, and I realized I was looking at them. And so it was this sort of inner realm playful thought experiment where in that moment I saw the worst that I could be and the greatest I can be, and then I noticed I am observing it from beyond both frameworks. So there is no instruction booklet because the instruction booklet has two options, either being ordered or chaotic. But when we require an intelligence that witnesses both and then reauthorizes itself, a better world to walk in, then I think that's the point, you know. Guys, this talk, I'm trying to think how I can, you know, pilot it, because on some sense from a universal future implies that you wonder about the evolution of skill and the commands of new skill. Okay, so this is what the title means, guys. It's literally like you're getting commands to implement your most incredible skill throughout this lifetime, to just do whatever you're energetically capable, to do your great work and realize that make it instantly a win-win for civilization. Like, we gotta be street smart about an advanced civilization. Do you know? And that's what I mean. You have to realize, where else are you gonna have the freedom you're waiting for the world to give you? There's no freedom. It's like, what's the savior gonna do? Like, come and pull you from a chair you don't want to get up from? You know? There's a yin-yang balance, guys. As long as you're a breathing creature, it's in some sense the mind and body. It's literally two dimensions you're existing simultaneously in. One dimension is defined out of a context of pure stillness and silence. The other is defined out of a pure context of movement and noise. So the more you move and the more you make noise, in some sense you as create sound. In some sense you as a creature, your character is being set into motion. So just communication is like the birth of character, right? And communication, people should see it as, in some sense, everything in life is just events. You wake up, bunch of events happen, and then you go back to sleep. You wake up, a sequence of phenomena happens, you go into those experiences and you give certain options and sequences to the moment, and it just keeps going, you know? It's like realizing the illusion. How is the illusion there? How is the illusion there? What is experiencing the illusion? So it becomes more like we're in a changing entropic universe. And so because everything is changing, our association, our consciousness of change is growth, literally. You know you've grown when you're conscious you've changed. You know, so that's why we are growing, not just separately on the world, but with the world as well. It's just asking yourself this question. You are like a candle, you've been lit, your consciousness is the candle flame, the wax of the candle is your body. Now what does this emergence of energy, what does it do? And it's up to your free will. So you have control over the ultimate destination of this physical. Like, it's kind of strange. No, we can't control like, let's say, the blood in the veins to go to a different direction, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon Master, like at the end of the movie. Like, we can't do that, but we can move the skeletal body and run around everywhere. Do you see? It's strange. It's like we have free will, but permitted through certain dimensions. And as the state of mind changes, the state of the self that perceives the freedom and the world that is being the freedom changes as well. So I'm saying that we have to become a hyper speed and hyper attention kind of civilization. I'm just saying that you have to see if the questions from your inner realms, technically you are left with how you move your attention. If the question is from your outer realms, the truth is too unknown. That means it's too unknown to see if it's an illusion or if it's the truth. It's just too dark to see the edge of the universe. You know what I mean? So, so anyways, guys, I'm gonna read one more poem, then say one last thing about skill, then end off. And this poem is called "The Divine is Not an Idea." And it's from this poetry book, Rahmana. Guys, I think I'm reading for you one of the most epic poems I've ever written. The divine is not an idea. An artist began crying one night when her artwork jumped off the wall and shouted, "The only wall is ideology." The artwork jumped off the wall, guys, and shouted, "The only wall is ideology." So I'm saying this is An artist began crying one night when her artwork jumped off the wall and shouted, "The only wall is ideology." The world speaks to us through every creation that walks in one moment. Do not fear death, it is the greatest lesson of life. I may be a child of God, but I grew up with all existence. Rage stops you from breaking the cage, but will your gentle wings let you sleep at night? Do not fear yourself, you are the beacon of absolute existence. All realities shall bow to the universe within. Do not fear blind men, spinning with sharp canes. Even lions will at last roar last. The divine is not an idea, but an experience faster than lightning. The child that has learned to play with space and time is beyond time and space. Poetry is the most beautiful mistake. When your feet have become the center of the sky, heaven will embrace earth before any name could touch sacred ground. A poet bleeds with his breath. Is blood just a color? ? And the poem ends. The only wall is ideology. So guys, one last thing I say before I end off. If anybody asks questions, feel free to share. Here's the thing. My experience with skill, I mean, we have this person named Robert Greene. I don't know if he said it, but it's pretty much this wisdom. I think it's ancient, more ancient than him. But 10,000 hours of doing something makes you, in some sense, master something. And you have to wonder why. Why does 10,000 hours of doing something make you attain mastery? Let me tell you the way I in some sense, experience a strange sort of mastery. I not mastery, but I feel comfortable enough to move through language. So I want to explain to you how I experience a sort of comfort with language, and it's not just because I gave these talks throughout time. That did have an effect. When you do something, you get various experiences, but it was because of an ultimate resolution I had concluded. I had concluded something so much further ahead that my endurance wouldn't have any resistance. Okay? So what that means is I came and in 2014 I was like, all right, I'm gonna try it. I got this idea. I had this thought of creating this channel, Mr.Within's Gift, and then just attempting to be that person who just attempted giving 10,000 talks, you know? And this sentence came for me to my mind, 10,000 talks for the betterment of mankind. So that sentence was literally like a ring on my finger that would remind me of why I was giving the talk, you know? And anyways, I started giving the talk, and when I sat there, I remember it was for the first time I was looking at life. It was as if before I wanted to speak, I was looking at what was there. And suddenly I got this note. I noticed how I'm watching my mind from the beginning that I wake up. When I became content with that watcher, then that watcher after some time became very content with anything happening. Now this doesn't mean just go with the flow. It doesn't mean just follow some sort of hidden divine meaning in your mind. I'm saying it was literally a moment where I was the novice, where I entered a reality where I felt I was a stranger to that world. And that feeling was there, I'm telling you. And when I went and started doing something, For a long time, these talks existed in my inner realms way before they were externalized. I feel like what happened was that the personal dimension of my life had become a bit attributeless. So then I had to question the actual shape of my moment. So eventually I would, there was this place in one of the pictures of the early talks you're going to see, this kind of cubic kind of chair. I would always go sit on there and I would just get my phone and I would press record until I bought headphones and it made my life easier. You know? And I would just press record and I would just speak in complete silence and solitude in a natural environment, and I would just speak. And it was kind of saying, like, you look at, for example, a tree, you have no opinion on the tree, it's just a tree. So I started looking at my own intelligence as if I had no opinion, kind of trying to see what is nature moving and what is me moving. And that led me to eventually realizing so that your craft, your skill is a mountain. And as you endure through it, you get to see a different side of it. Do you see? This is universal. So I can tell you that I feel I've experienced days of life where I've attempted to look at how thought is happening. And it's for writing, I would say it's like this. Imagine you just start from this. Imagine, this is what I kind of like say. Imagine you write a sentence a day. Let's say you heard 10,000 hours to master anything. Really? Let's try it out. You know, let's try it out for a sentence. Let's write a sentence every day. Let's see if we can in some sense, write a sentence. You know, we can become a master a writer of sentences. Okay, let's try a Shaolin level mastery of sentence writing. Okay, so the person would wake up every day, and first they would maybe first they write a lot, get bored. I'm saying start with writing a sentence a day. Write one sentence a day. You're gonna notice that sentence. Usually, the first sentences the person writes, they're writing it for others. They're writing it based on what others have told them. After days, imagine years are going by. Not even years, after a week, after 2 days of just writing, you will suddenly realize a synchronization of your writing with speech. You see, if somebody was to tell you, explain a picture, because you see the picture, you could instantly explain it. So I realized that in order to be able to speak, the person has to perceive an inner image, then give words to the image. And bilingual children experience this. All those people who speak more than one language, and let me tell you, everybody speaks more than language because mathematics is technically a language. Okay? So everybody who understands to some degree numerology, it's like you're good. Okay, you're bilingual. You understand what I'm talking about. You know? So I'm saying that it's seeing one value, one phenomena have multiple values. And isn't that what the imagination is? Isn't the imagination the parallel options of what you could have done before you decided something? It's like an inner environment. And this inner environment needs to be explored. And when you write a lot, after some point, you don't even think about the pen or how to write anymore. You don't care about that. You just go infused in your emotion, and it's as if it's instant. Just like a professional piano player knows that how their fingers should go exactly on the song, like they know a song how to play it. There was a time where I used to know how to play the Godfather theme on piano. And anytime I would get bored, I would just be on the piano. Just living in the, experiencing my own solitude like a Godfather. So anyways, the person who wants to play the piano, they have an instant familiarity with the song and they play. Okay? They play, they know where their fingers should go. So after a while of writing and constantly experiencing every day, getting a new experience. I mean, think about it. You doing something a lot literally means you're getting multiple experiences. So this was what I was thinking, that people should try to develop the skills for their future job while they're in their current job. Do you know? That means think about it. So much of human life is being wasted because people are still trying to get the resources. They never actualize their potential. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Maslow was probably, he was very sad probably before he died. Because he was like, what's happening to the self-actualization of the human being? And the self-actualization of the human being was the innocence of this creature just evolving to become this playful human being, like a playful human child. Okay, when you look at a human being, there's a value in there. We've all been children. We all are coming from the same place, right? So in some sense, it's as if you as a person of whatever your age is, you are in some sense the guardian of all those ages underneath you. Do you see? Imagine a civilization with ageist defense systems. Oh man. So anyways, guys, endure through it. Literally think as if there was no time, how long would it take you to master something? You would never fail. Not that you would never fail. Some things are not meant for you and you should notice it. That's like part of the practice, right? Like there's some moments where the person can instantly know their ego is unnecessary in the environment. Their projection and as a character. Sometimes, I don't know, I can't tell you, like many, I mean, I am a person that you can say speaks a lot, but in public, like, I don't know, I walk like in, in a strange kind of silence often. Sometimes I don't know how to say it. It's like really how, what identity can energy have? It's insane. It's insane in the sense that our whole sanity is in the surreal. What we think is real, what we think is normal, wasn't normal back in the day. If you had a time machine and you went back in the day where people had top hats, people in the street would come up to you and be like, "Yo, why don't you respect civilization? Wear a top hat." You know, the hat separates us from animals. You know, like maybe that's why they wore top hats. You know, imagine Darwin was like, yo, guys, we evolved from monkeys. Like back in the day, he's saying this from chimpanzees. He's saying this to like his crew. And people are like, Darwin, but you don't see chimpanzees wearing top hats. And Darwin's like, you're not going to be invited next time. I think we have access to a natural intelligence. I think that natural intelligence, after you go through a phase of becoming acquainted with the skill, I mean, think about it. It's like martial arts. What's martial art teaching? What's the martial artist's way of teaching? Pretty much practice these combinations, get your physical strength to where it can apply all these applications, and then go in one fight and suddenly realize these are all tools. So it's martial arts is giving the martial artist tools, but how you use the tools is up to you. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like life has given you certain tools, certain skills, certain abilities, but how you use them is up to you. That means on some level, free will is that who wants to be a millionaire choice to make. You know? Life can be divided in options. All of it is that eventually we just have, here's the thing, guys, we just have boxes of language over our heads as a species, and we haven't realized it's a really mysterious and unknown place. So we have to treat the world as unknown. So that means you can't literally hate the world or love the world because it's too unknown. Who knows what it's going to be? We're just factors. We're variables. That means on some level, I do grant the civilization an interpretation as if scientists they might not be able to find an equation for the whole universe. I mean, that's like big dreams, you know? Big dreams while you're living in a dream, you know? You know? So it would be, I would say it's more kind of like Rumi. Okay, Rumi shared this algorithm, this mystic. He said your task is not to seek love, but to get rid of all the barriers you have made against it. Your task is not to act like a good person suddenly, be a fluffy good person. Your act is to see what has kept you from your own decency, your own nature, and your own eyes. You have to realize language is like a stick that's thrown at a lion. You only throw a stick at a lion once, you know? If you want to be alive, of course. Can you imagine someone throwing a stick at a lion? You know, he's like, yo, this lion ain't no king. You know, see, it's the lion, you know? And the lion growls and he's like, yeah, the lion's the king, you know? For me, an explorative new dimension had to be. I had an experience in my inner realms once where I would say it was one of the most unique experiences of my lifetime, where literally there was a moment where I was just sitting and there was no time. There was no consideration of the future, of the past, no opinion on the present, as if the present is just what it is. What can you do? And so there was just being. It was the state of just being sight in a room of being. And in that state, I suddenly heard from my inner realms. That's when you can notice your inner realms, where you're not a thought to yourself anymore. When you can watch thoughts, you can notice how thoughts appear. How they appear, because you're a person with a personality, they can animate. So there's endless ways that the face beyond the veil can animate. That's why the wisdom that I was given was that don't attach yourself to a personality behind the veil. You know, those people searching to make contact with interdimensional beings, oh my God, that's like so silly. That's so rude too. It's like literally you're running with muddy boots into into a kingdom. You know, into a throne room, and the king's like, this guy's running with muddy boots, and the guy's like, I just want to talk to the king, you know? And so it becomes a situation where it has consequences. Consequences because the unknown requires an unknown method. That means if you want to move in a known place, known vehicle. If you want to move in an unknown place, perhaps an unknown vehicle is required. And the closest unknown vehicle that man has to move in his inner realms, the most safest, it doesn't mean it's the best. It doesn't mean we know a lot about it. It's just for now, I feel the safest way to navigate in the inner realms is geometrically. Because the geometry will always keep you in the radius of personhood. So there has been times where I've perceived an image in my inner realms of something with, let's say, characteristics of a creature. Instantly, I have turned it into a geometrical shape. And then I've reduced the geometrical shape and I've pushed it away. So I have a playful relationship with my inner realms because I realized mastery didn't mean you were afraid to fail. It meant you weren't afraid to win. So many people are afraid to win because they feel they can't. And that feeling is limiting the potential of the civilization. That means it's like, you know, if Albert Einstein, you know, needed help, like, and if I was there, I would go and help him, because the man's existence has a value for the civilization. So I'm saying we're being moved to an era of more freedom with language. That means more chaotic communication. At the same time, if we think we're communication, there's going to be endless wars. If you think you're a thought, somebody comes and says you're not that thought, Like imagine like there's a box on your head, you think you're like this box, then somebody comes and puts a bigger box on your head, and then you start fighting. You start fighting them, and you put a bigger box on their head, and they put a bigger box, and it becomes a situation where it's as if we are actually never fighting each other because we are an evolutionary process. We are something that's evolving. How can you define your value if tomorrow still exists? That's like the challenge a lot of people in Silicon Valley have. They're like, they don't know if they should sell their business or not. And so really it's like, I don't know what tomorrow holds. I think it's about just understanding that everything is appearing as a world, and it's also appearing with a self that's the meaning in the world. There's two lights on this world. One is coming from the sun, you know? The other is coming from how the sunlight hits phenomena, enters your eyes, and in some sense, you perceive a world. Guys, how fascinating it is. The sun's light is the precondition to our storytelling. Without a world, what can be said? What can happen? Do you see? So mere existence is so unknown. So we're going to be like, yo, I thought Earth was home. Then you're like, there's no such thing as Earth. It's a rock in such a vast macrocosmic landscape that we're just naming our own sandcastles. The search for true knowledge has to incorporate the experiential dimension, and inevitably it would mean every human being needs to share their inner realms, write a book about it or something, and give it to this institution for analysis or research or something. You know, let me tell you why. Because it's important to see how the inner life of humanity is going forth. So the outer life could be incredible. Imagine like we have the most advanced technologies, but the inner life is terrible. People feel alone, people feel detached, people have lost the sense of what it means to be human, you know, and anytime laughter and humor, the sound of laughter in a civilization reduces, that means extinction is taking a step closer. Because our humanity is preserved in our foolishness. It's like that we are human because we're conscious that we are oscillating between the imperfect and the perfect, right? That's when you hear, for example, stand-up comedians, what are they doing? They're doing what Alan Watts would say, polar thinking, you know. That means the person sees something as trash in one view and then suddenly sees it as a treasure in another view, you know. The punchline appears as trash, then the punchline appears as treasure. So anyways, guys, that's the end of the talk. Thanks for everyone who's tuned in. I'm going to open it up to Q&A in case if people have a question, but it's going to be a 4-minute Q&A because usually people don't have questions. So it's 12:52, 12:56. 12:56. So alright guys, 4-minute Q&A. If anybody has a question, I can share my view. Okay, here. What is this? Okay, so guys, Jamie says, can it be one's eyes that light up the sun? Technically, what the sun means to you, you're lighting that. But what the sunlight is, no. And it's a good thing, because to be a solipsist would be, for there to be a God inside a God, would mean an ultimate simulation inside an ultimate simulation. It would technically be empty. Some dimensions become so intense that their only resolution is like you just realize the human being doesn't have the eyes for it. Literally, it's like we won't see it. It's like the meaning evolves. It's like the echo fades, but the sound frequency is still moving on a very small scale. You know. So when you say, can it be one's eyes that light up the sun? Without the sun existing before, there would be no light to even consider that we could light it up. So the concept of light wouldn't exist if the sun didn't exist before our eyes. So I would say, can it be one's eyes that light up the sun? No, because we wouldn't have a concept of light or the sun. So we wouldn't have a concept of light if we suddenly raised it, unless, I don't know, maybe we're a sun in another dimension. Can you imagine our solar system, the sun, is like in some other parallel dimension of the earth, or on some parallel dimension, like a being, just a being going about their day walking? Can you imagine right now you being the sun of a universe as you're simultaneously being a human being here? Like, I'm saying it's a playful view. So I would say no. I feel the sun needs to be there before consciousness can even consider the light. So great question though. Thanks for the question, Jen. So good question. Guys, 1 minute. 1 minute. Guys, the way I've placed the Q&A, I wanted the light of the Q&A to match the center of that thing. Like, yeah. Guys, I'm gonna leave you off with one last sentence. When else can we see the efficient option of our life? When else? When? Every day happens once. That means if you don't try to do something if you don't, you have to evoke the effort. Life, you have to notice something so important that it calls you. It's kind of like when the spirit of the craft evokes you, you know? It's like after some point, that person playing an instrument is not playing an instrument. That person is hearing the heartbeat of a moment's rhythm. It's like sometimes when I listen to musicians, there was this man named Estos Torres. When you listen to his guitar, it's literally like he's literally like as if digging through something. It's like as if behind his eyes, with every chord of the guitar, a memory is passing by. You know. I'm gonna post the link here. Just hang on, folks. Estos Torres. Oh, okay, here. It's Estas Tone. Sorry, not Taurus. Estas Tone. Internal flight. There we go. I'm going to post this here. Guys, I have this community on Patreon. This community is pretty much I just share all the videos I find throughout the day. So it's kind of, but anyways, so check out that link. Yeah. What am I looking for right now? Oh, okay. Guys, I gotta read this last Upanishad quote that's just open. Watch your thoughts, they become words. I think this is something Lao Tzu also said, but anyways, watch your thoughts, they become words. Watch your words, they become actions. Watch your actions, they become habits. Watch your habits, they become character. Watch your character, for it becomes your destiny. You are what your deep driving desire is. As your desire is, so is your will. As your will is, so is your deed. As your deed is, so is your destiny. So anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. I hope this episode was helpful. Much blessings, and I'll say.